you want these? Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, you're good.
Is it recording?
Yeah.
Yes.
It is. It's on. Okay. All right. How's everybody doing today? Glad when they said unto me, let's go to the house of the Lord. And speaking of, we got a few faces I haven't seen in a while. Good to have them here. Glory. Excuse me. Yeah, so we're getting a little bit of a late start here. Very thankful to see everyone who did make it out. And before I start with this, unless you all got a really coolly outfitted cave like Fred Flintstone, you probably have a TV and know what's going on over in Europe right now.
Yes.
And some people are like, oh, well, why do I really care if some big bully from one side is invading somebody else? It's important. You do need to care.
Yes.
I'm old enough to remember Ronald Reagan and the big bad Soviet Union, and when he called them the evil empire. And they may be smaller in landmass than they used to be, and they may have gotten rid of some of their weapons, but they haven't gotten rid of most of them. And it's, like no national defense figure. I'm just saying what was already on the news. They have all of their nuclear-tipped rockets on the alert one level below launching.
Yeah.
They're at DEFCON 2. And I imagine we probably are too. That is if anybody's paying attention. That's what really worries me.
Yes.
Whatever you think about politics, the current administration is failing us massively. This never would have happened if other people had been watching and on top of things before they got to where they are now. So the flag of Ukraine has blue and yellow in it. I didn't have an exact tie, but I found this one. It has red too, so maybe it's a little bit of USA here as well. But this is why I'm not wearing a collar today. That I'm aware of, I do not have any Ukrainian blood in me myself personally, but I can identify with them because we are all citizens of the world, are we not? They're still people, right? Whether I can say that I can trace bloodline ancestry back to them or not doesn't matter. Those people are dying.
Yes.
They're taking up weapons. They're shooting from windows. And I'm doing the street-to-street partisan thing that we haven't seen in, probably since like when they invaded Chechnya. And what's very, very disturbing about that, not only what I said about them standing up their forces, again, this is nothing that's hidden. This is on the news. Only 50% of our combat planes are ready to fight. We've allowed our military to just crap out. So we're not ready to do anything, really. And our upper military structure is all doing this insane woke stuff too. So they're just gone. They're just gone. So it's probably going to be mostly Europe trying to defend itself. We need to pray for them, and we need to pray for us too. Because if it gets stupider, and it could, we could actually see missiles flying. That has never happened. A couple times in the 80s, and a lot of people don't even probably know about that, we got real close. And then, of course, there was the Cuban Missile Crisis when some maniac decided that missiles 90 miles off of Miami would be a great idea. So those are three that are really evident that got us really close to doing something super stupid. We're right about there now. It's bad. It is very bad. And a lot of people I don't think are getting that. They're like, oh, well, there's two guys over there bullying each other. No, this is hair's breadth away from involving a huge escalation. World War I started because some knucklehead got himself shot in the head in Sarajevo, which probably nobody even knew where that city was or who the guy was that got shot. Archduke Franz Ferdinand, and millions of people died in the course of 4 years in that war. So these little stupid things can very rapidly spiral out of control.
Yeah.
God forbid we end up there now.
Amen.
So here's to y'all that are fighting.
Yes.
I did not write this, so I want to be sure that I give proper attribution to the man that did. He is a very smart guy. I don't know him real well. He used to be Karen's pastor. I've hung out with him a little bit, and I like him. He's not only very intelligent, but generally overall nice guy. Pastor Bill. He wrote this and had said something about it, and I said, hey, I would really like to read that. So he shipped me the whole copy, and I said, this is pretty cool. Would you mind if I used it? Because some people don't want to have their sermon stolen. And he said, no, I would be honored if you would do so. And I said, no, the honor would be mine. So he knows full well I am not doing anything sleight of hand here. I would never do that. If this is not my thought, I'm not going to represent it, pretend that it is. He did a good job here. The modern day Tower of Babel.
Yeah.
Human ability and the fear of God. This kind of tails right into everything right now. As we contemplate the city of Babel, ignoring superficial differences of space and time, it's certainly prophetic and should be frightening, seeing how consistent the natural heart and mind of man is throughout the epoch of civilization. In the next few minutes, I will scan the millennia, hopefully making at least one point. Viz, when man divorces his heart and mind from his moorings to the heart and mind of God, the potential for wickedness is not simply a possibility, but a certainty. 14 to 15 July 2005, Leon Cass, chair of the President's Council on Bioethics, addressed the Center for Bioethics and Human Dignity at Trinity International University. His following statements concerning the present and the future of reproductive technologies describe the challenges facing us with the increase of man's knowledge and ability. And this is going to be truly disturbing. It is going from the treatment of infertility by the production of any child to the provision of children of a certain sort. At first, healthy children, then maybe to children of a certain gender, and later perhaps to better than healthy children through genetically manipulated enhancement. Presently, eggs and sperm for technological reproduction have been obtainable only from adults. In the future, they may be obtainable also from fetuses and even possibly derived from stem cells. Scientists working with mice have already produced both egg and sperm precursors from embryonic stem cells. Indeed, they have produced both egg and sperm from the same stem cell line. So you could be your father and your mother. Creepy. A double X stem cell female can be induced to produce both a double X or a XY sperm precursor. This means a child might have a 5-day-old embryo for its biological father and mother.
Wow.
It means that a homosexual couple could have their own biological children. And not to exclude the next logical step, if the stem cell lines were derived from a cloned embryo, the same person could be both the biological father and mother to a child produced from his own stem cell-derived gametes. I actually wrote a fiction novel years ago that was very similar to this, and it's really frightening that that's actually not fiction at this point. Centuries ago, wise Solomon wrote, that which has been is that which will be, and that which has been done is that which will be done. So there is nothing new under the sun. Indeed, we go back to the beginning. Now the whole earth used the same language and the same words, and it came about as they journeyed east that they found a plain in the land of Shinar and settled there. Oh, sorry, this is Genesis 11, 1 to 4, my bad. Actually, the note was at the bottom. Okay. And it came about as they journeyed east, they found a plain in the land of Shinar and settled there. And they said to one another, come, let us make bricks and burn them thoroughly. And they used brick for stone, and they used tar for mortar. And they said, come, let us build for ourselves a city and a tower whose top will reach into heaven. And let us make a monument to ourselves, lest we be scattered abroad over the face of the whole earth. Babel was a city that in today's world would be designated world-class urban center, showcasing the intellectual, architectural, and technological prowess of its citizens and engineers. What is poignantly illustrated with thoughtful consideration of historical record is Babel seems not to have been a city of evil inhabitants, but were basically good people who were using their God-given talents for the betterment of their society. We wouldn't look at that as being a bad thing, right? Isn't that what we're supposed to be doing? Are we trying to better society?
Yes. Yes.
Oopsie. The citizens of Babel were doing nothing more than applying the advances of their intellectual explorations, which in the context of their epoch meant building the equivalent to a present-day skyscraper. So we have buildings right now that are a little more than half a mile tall.
Yes.
And to me, that's just astounding. That thing just doesn't go. Because it looks like this little pencil, and you're like, are you kidding me? Just wait for a good breeze, and that thing's just... And it's, it's going to be like one of those, sci-fi meteor movies, right? You see all the people falling out the windows, and you're plummeting to their death as this thing's just collapsing in the heat, but yet somehow it doesn't. And you're like, wow, that is some insane engineering.
Yes.
And that's only where the bar is now. I mean, these guys, they're like, oh, well, that ain't enough. I'm going to pass this. They're talking about 3/4 of a mile high now. They want to go another 1,000 feet. I'm like, wow, this is just crazy.
Yes.
But they were doing basically the same thing. They were having a buildings arms race here. Indeed, the ziggurats of the Middle East have baffled even the likes of present-day architects who marvel at people so primitive, or at least we think they were primitive, could have designed such spectacular structures in light of the demanding necessity of mathematics, geometry, and physics. Truth. To argue that Babel was technologically superior for their day is beyond dispute. But the issue at Babel was not the use of inherently evil technology, for there's nothing inherently wicked about building a structure. Even a great structure that stretches to the sky. Is a gun inherently evil? No. A gun has no intent. It has no brain at all. It is a piece of engineering. It's a bunch of parts. Now, yeah, there are smart guns, and that's getting into places that get real creepy, especially when they have AI. But I'm talking about your average pistol. I have 9 guns, and none of them ever killed anybody on their own. Right? Because that's what they do. They're machines. Has your car ever run over a pedestrian and killed him? No, because your car doesn't run off by itself. There are self-driving cars too. All those stories aside, right? They're tools, they're items, they're engineering parts, they're objects. They have no inherency. They don't have intents.
Yes.
Right? There's no intent of evil, there's no intent of good. They just exist. Right? Well, same thing with what they're doing here, but here's where it gets to the point. What were they actually thinking while doing? If I buy a firearm with the intent of going into a post office and eradicating as many people as possible, or a school, or a mall, any place that uses a lot of people, yeah, that's an evil intent. The gun didn't do it, I did it. So this insane logic out there that, oh, if we put more laws, it'll stop. The guns aren't killing anybody. The cars aren't killing anybody. So we got thousands of trucks coming towards us right now, don't we?
Yeah.
From California. Are any of those going maximum overdrive and running over people? Did you ever see that movie where the trucks actually go wild? Okay. Stephen King, yeah. That's science fiction. The truck isn't driving itself, okay? It hasn't lost its mind and gone, yeah, I think I'm just going to slaughter people because this is going to be fun. It's a tool. It's a whole bunch of them. And yeah, theoretically, they could be hugely dangerous, but they're just tools. They're not doing anything on their own. This building wasn't doing anything on its own either, but what was the people that were putting it together doing? Watch. The issue at Babel, as stated in the text, was their accomplishment was to be a monument to God's greatness? No. Their greatness. We shall build, we shall show, we shall reach to the heaven. We are going to show God that we can get to Him. He is not away from us. He's not immune. We are so smart, we are so good, that we're just going to creep in the back door and He ain't going to see us coming because we're that intelligent. It was their ego. So one might assume the significant focus of Babel was its citizens' egos. Yeah, okay, there you go. He just said the same thing I did. That would be a superficial assessment. Rather, their egos were merely the symptom of the real issue. Namely, they had assumed the role of sole authority in their society. Wow. The inspired parenthetical comment is added, showing us where their egos, energized and quickened by their technological savvy, had led them. This will bring us together and keep us from scattering all over the world. Babel seemed to be a marvelous city, advanced, unified, together, at peace, and were all of one mind and one accord. But there was one enormous glitch in this quasi-utopian society. Where's God?
God.
You see, God had expressed his desire for mankind the moment he created them. Namely, God blessed them and said to them, be fruitful, multiply, and stop. No, he didn't. Did it? Be fruitful, multiply, and just stay in this one big valley. We'll call it Los Angeles, because there's like mountains all the way around it, right? It's this big bowl. No. Fill the earth. Go. Get out. But they all had one language at that point, right? And the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the sons of men had built. And the Lord said, behold, they are one people, and they all have the same language. And this is what they began to do. And now nothing will be impossible for them. Nothing will be impossible for them. One might assert that sounds like a good thing. Isn't this what we're trying to accomplish and long for today? A world that is united, working for the common good of the world family, not a world torn apart by politics and ideology and religion, which lead inevitably to disunity and war. Now, where are we right now?
Yeah.
Some people have suggested here that God was a bit insecure.
No.
God insecure. Now that is an interesting concept. That is hilarious because it's absurd. But God's problem with the city was not that he was worried about being diminished for his sake. How can he be? He made everything. But he was concerned of being diminished on their sake. The ingenuity of Babel became the proximate cause of God's anger toward them for their God-given unity and their God-given talent, and their God-given ability, and their God-given curiosity, and their God-given intellect became all self-serving. All of what God had intended to be used for his plan and purpose became instrument of self-gratification. The will of God, they determined, was no longer desired or necessary. In fact, the very gifts God gave them individually as people and corporately as a metropolis were no longer accepted as God-given, but were part and parcel of some intrinsic splendor, apparently evolved, self-generated, or at least imagined by the new deity collectively called us. He actually said mankind, but same thing. Us. God said, be fruitful, multiply, and fill the earth. They said, but we don't want to fill the earth as you requested, desired, ordered. We desire to stay here so we can pursue what interests us. And by the way, God, have you noticed that we have created, there's nothing like it anywhere on the earth. God, you are no longer needed. God, you are no longer welcome in our school, government,
Yeah.
nation.
Yep.
He says town.
Healthcare.
No difference, is there?
Yeah.
I'm still wondering how long it's going to be before somebody gets loose with an electric chisel up in Washington and starts taking "In God We Trust" off the front of all of the buildings that it's inscribed into in stone. You can chisel things off. You can make them go away. It won't be easy. Paint's not going to cover it up, but you can get rid of it. How long will it be? They already want to get "In God We Trust" off the money. But does it really matter? Do we really actually trust God anyway?
As a country.
Yeah, some of us do. A few of us, thankfully, we still have a remnant, but for the most part, no. It's a joke that's still on there. A very bad joke. So God went down, anthropomorphically speaking, and confused their language and consequently their plans, in order that God's plan might continue unabated. The issue of Babel was not simply their technology, but that their love of the living God was subordinated to their love of their technology, what they did. So look at his earlier statement. We don't want to do. We will do. We desire to stay. We pursue. We build. We create. You get out of the way. And what does a lot of our science do today? Oh, well, that's patently absurd. Nobody created the universe. It was this random explosion thing. All right. All right, well, I'm not disagreeing with the explosion part because there is physical proof that happened. Ask them the question and watch their heads explode. Where did the stuff come from that then exploded? End of discussion. There is no logical, physical, in your head, in your natural mind answer for how matter spontaneously generates. What's that, parthenogenesis? You know what that's called? Or something just pops out of nothing? Anyway, there's some technical term for that. I think that's what it was. Anyway, yeah, that'll be end of argument. Because what I love is that they'll go, oh, well, you know, actually that was because there was a universe before and it all went and crushed back down again and then it exploded again. It's like, okay, cool. All right, maybe so. Well, how many cycles did that do? Well, if that's true, we don't really know because we can't get past where that little bang was, right? We don't know what happened at the other end. Okay, so how many cycles did it go through? Okay, so let's say it was 1,000. Where did the first one start? You still can't answer it. They're going in a circular argument trying to push you off of the fact that they have zero answer. But they don't want to ever have to admit that there has to be something more than science. I have no problem at all with science. I think actually it's great because it shows you in detail how crazy smart the guy is that built everything. The one that's still up there. The one that watches us and just goes,
I say even to the intricate DNA structure, you know, that in itself is genius. No man can ever do anything like that. In order, the way it's ordered and everything, the way it's created, the way it's designated to each and every person, it's amazing.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, if you ignored everything else that's insane that goes on in the universe because it's so intricate, and you're going to say, oh, that all just happened because of a good dice roll. Just take a human. So you're going to tell me that we crawled out of swamp slime, right? This little oozy thing says, I think I need eyeballs, ears, hair, fingers, bones, all the craziness that goes on that we don't even have to think about because it thankfully all works automatically. Lymph system, digestion, heart, all that other goofiness that keeps us from falling over dead most of the time. That just operates completely by itself. So what, little slime ball said I needed all of that? Just, oh, perfect. Hey, look at this. Look what I've done. It's a bacteria. Did they get any smarter? We still have bacteria. Why do we have no bacteria then? If they all evolved up, yeah, well, they ought to be lions and tigers by now, shouldn't they?
Yeah, the coronavirus.
The coronavirus killed them? Yeah. Right, perfectly. There's a great example. Then why do viruses still exist? It's absurd to believe that anything like that is possible. We are far too complicated to happen on a dice roll, a roulette wheel. Flip some cards. Let's play solitaire. Yeah, come on, really? You can't be that stupid. But the flip side is then they must say, I am not the smartest guy in the universe. And some scientists can't handle that. They can't do it. I'm sorry, but no, I'm not the brainiest guy. Oh! Can't deal with it. Get over yourself. Spineless little jellyfish, get over yourself. Somebody a lot smarter than you made all this stuff. All you're doing is figuring out how it works. You're reverse engineering it. You know, if I gave you a super complicated piece of electronics, and you were good with electronics, you could take that thing apart and go, oh my gosh, this is amazing. How did this, who designed this? Was it a team? Was it one guy? This is insane. I can't believe how complicated this is. And maybe you could reproduce it if you were smart enough, but you're not the one that came up with it to begin with. Well, our whole universe looks like that. We don't know how to build a planet.
He gave us the power.
We don't know how to make rings circle another planet.
Right.
We don't know how to put a moon in orbit, keep it from crashing into the planet that it's circling, or just zipping off into space and really screwing everything up. If our moon left, do you know what would happen to Earth?
Yes,
Right.
yes. Destruction.
It would be epic.
Be done.
It'd be done.
It'd be epic.
Death Star coming up.
Yeah, for real. That's no moon. That's a space station. And that was a little toy. That wasn't even near the size of what our moon is. Our moon's a quarter of the size of our Earth.
That's right.
And yet the funny thing is that somehow it got locked where it always shows the same face. We never see the back, right? The dark side of the moon. Now Pink Floyd wouldn't have had an album without it, would they? Bummer. So that happened accidentally too, right? It just has the magically correct spin time that we never see the back because it's rotating just as quickly as our planet's going around. So let's move it a little closer. What happens? Insane storms, huge tides. Anything on the coast is gone. You forget about us, D.C., Baltimore, Philadelphia, New York, Boston, all of New England, Florida, all the Carolinas. It's just gone. They're barely above sea level now. Could you imagine what would have happened if every full moon you got like a 40-foot tidal wave coming in? It'd wipe out everything. Or if you had the opposite, they were all gone because the moon's not here. Now what's going to keep the ocean stirred? The ocean dies, we all die. Because everything is tied together.
Yes.
It's a perfect dance, perfect balance. And that just happened accidentally too, right?
Right.
Yeah. Because like Proto-Earth just farted out this big blob and it turned into a moon, right? So now we've got two. We've got big guy and little guy, and they're just magically going around and around and around. But all of that happened just accidentally. Amazing that anybody could think of that.
They're up there.
It is one thing to know how to build a complex, magnificent structure. It is altogether another to ask God if you should.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things we can do that we really shouldn't. Bioengineering, cloning. Haven't we been living with the Chinese bioengineering mistake? Well, probably not mistake. It was probably actually a bioweapon. It was probably very much intended, but either way, isn't that something that we should not be doing? We have weaponized anthrax stored away in our stuff.
Yeah.
We got
Gain function.
all kinds of You wouldn't want to know what major governments have for weaponry. And I'm not just talking about missiles and nuclear warheads. They got stuff that's real super tiny, that's super ugly. Poison gas, weaponized bacteria, weaponized viruses. We could smoke the entire planet if we let all that stuff run loose. Look what happened just with one.
Oh yeah, coronavirus. Gain function.
The details of that epoch are different than the details before us, but I contend the principles involved are essentially the same, which beg the question, does having the knowledge and the ability to accomplish something necessarily permit, justify, or require the accomplishment of it? If one is amenable to a broad sweeping in-principle argumentation, even if somewhat simplistic, all we need to do is revisit Eden. The prototypical family had the ability to eat from any of the trees of the garden, but having the ability did not permit, justify, or require that they do so. In fact, we know it was detrimental when they did. Thanks, Eve. That was an easy diet. Couldn't follow it, huh? And so we attempt to navigate the expansive and precarious waters of human knowledge with respect to reproductive technologies and our ever-increasing ability to apply them. First, it would be helpful if you accept the assertion that, like it or not, we all inherently tend towards an existential view of the world in which we live. I use the word not in the pure philosophical sense of Kierkegaard or Sartre, and no, I actually haven't read either of those guys, although I know who they are. So, I said Bill's a smart guy. But in the sense that we are fettered creatures bound by the constraints of time, and as such time tends to diminish the reality of the past and conceals the course of the future. So the present, being that with which we are familiar, colors everything, which is to say the medical technology of any given generation are state-of-the-art to the people of that generation. And state-of-the-art technology invariably raise controversy in the generation in which they appear. What did they do in the American Civil War? We had no such thing as an ambulance before that. Nobody had thought that that was super important. That was an American invention in a time of horrendous conflict that they finally got the idea, hey, if this guy's all busted up, if I can get him to a doctor fast enough, I might be able to save him. Which really took off really pretty much between World War II and the Korean conflict, where they had specific built vehicles as ambulances. They had helicopters that were outfitted to carry people that had been injured, and the kill rate from guys that weren't dead immediately, bullet through the head, yeah, you could have fixed that. But if you're shot up and you got holes in your torso, but you're still alive and you're bleeding out, well, if they can get you somewhere to get you fixed, you got a good chance. All that evolved from all of these horrendous things, all of these warfares. So they started in the Civil War building these giant, like, carriage type things. Like, you ever see the ones like up in Amish country where they're pulling behind the Clydesdales? It looked a lot like that, or like a gypsy wagon. They just shoved the injured guys in there and ran them as quickly as they could get, which for those things probably maximum speed of 15 miles an hour if you were lucky, hopefully to get you to the back line where the surgeons were, which were basically really guys with saws and forceps. And that was state of the art. It was. If you got hit with a 58 caliber mini ball, the horrendous thing about them is they were slow, but they were big, which isn't something that we really are too familiar with because nobody uses that kind of weaponry anymore. But they were horrendous. If you got hit in the arm, it didn't make a hole. It blew half your arm off, and the bone just powdered. We couldn't fix that now. But what do you think they were doing? They're just like, yeah, okay, hold them down. They'd give you a copious amount of alcohol, half on the injury and half the guy drinks so he doesn't feel it, and then they saw your arm off because that was all they could do. But if the guy was still laying in the battlefield, he's dead. He's done. He's either going to bleed out or he's going to get infected, right? So he's finished regardless. So, okay, yeah, take my arm. I'd rather go that way. That was the beginning of them thinking, really about this. What do we do to help improve combat chances? Like I said, if you didn't get whacked and you take one through the old brain pan, you're finished. But for the ones that weren't, and that's exactly what he's saying. It was state of the art at the time, right? This is what they were doing. Well, they didn't have steel columns, right? They didn't have reinforced concrete. They didn't have engineered concrete. Well, that was far before the Romans. The Romans were masters of engineering. They perfected the use of concrete. Even underwater, they built piers and bridges and stuff. And a lot of them are still in use and are carrying automobile traffic, which is insane to me because they were so heavily overbuilt that they can handle all of that extra load that never would have been considered. And they're still here. And we put up a bridge, and 100 years later, it falls over on its own.
Or it moves. I think they move.
Yeah, it moves, yeah. And here we've got these that are 2,000 years, no maintenance at all, because the Roman Empire is gone, and they're still in operation. Incredible. State of the art. In 1847, Hungarian physician Ignaz Semmelweis noticed the incidence of purple fever was much higher in one of his wards than another. He sought to discover why. He suggested to his colleagues that washing their hands before dealing with their patients, especially after handling a corpse, might drastically reduce the rate of infection. This seems laughable to us today, and we do not think of soap or antiseptic as high technology, but germ theory was not yet discovered. They didn't know what they were dealing with. And at their advent, they were controversial. People actually argued, why do I need soap? His colleagues argued that even if he was right, washing one's hands each time before treating a pregnant woman would be too much work. Oh my God. And I am glad I am not visiting the doctor during this time. And of course, doctors were not excited about the implications if Semmelweis was right and vigorously excoriated his ideas. They called him an idiot, basically, an imbecile, drooling moron. His observations were contrary to the accepted opinion of the day. Receiving so much criticism, Semmelweis went insane and died in an asylum. And what do we owe him today? And this is how he was treated. We now know, everyone now knows, that Semmelweis was right, and we respond with disgust to the ignorance and scientific carelessness of a community that sent that brave physician to an early grave. But will the future civilization that judges us, if there's any future civilizations left, that judges our epoch react with similar disgust and indignation to the technology of our culture, dismayed by our apostate arrogance? Abortion comes to mind. Dumbfounded by our rejection of God's wisdom and authority. I hope so, for that would mean that future generations will have come to their senses and realize their God-honoring place in the created order. And that ain't on the top, is it? We're not the alpha predator. God's at the top. We fall in somewhere underneath of there. These people forgot that. We, like the citizens of Babel, are so impressed with our ability to do something that God's wisdom on a matter is not merely discounted, it's at first ridiculed and then annihilated. And once God's ideas are erased, God himself is conveniently erased. If the people of Babel, while defiantly implementing amoral technologies, albeit with a cavalier heart toward God, experienced divine intrusion and consequences to bring about his purpose, what might we expect as we defiantly pursue a moral technology, those technologies which are inherently perverse, as divined by that which assaults and insults the God-instilled uniqueness and dignity of every human being. With hearts so calloused, we need more than a merciful intervention, a gentle tweaking. I don't know if I'm going to finish this. Gentle tweaking of our ideological foundations. We need a wholesale recreation of who we are. And that is precisely the remedy God offers us. When a person comes to Christ by faith, God certainly imputes the righteousness of Christ in its entirety to the one he has saved. It is completed the moment one truly believes. But the heart and mind of the one who believes does not undergo such instantaneous benefit. Usually true. Rather, they are renewed day by day gradually as transformation is sought, allowing God to conform him to the image of Christ by equipping him, as Paul writes, through giving him the mind of Christ. All right, so basically he's saying, hey, if you can't stop smoking, yeah, I don't remember if I can say that I've ever seen it personally, but yeah, I've certainly heard that somebody was baptized, received the Spirit, never touched a cigarette ever again. Pulled the pack out of his pocket and went, oh, these are disgusting. They stink. Threw them away, never wanted another one. Yeah, that can happen. It can. But it most of the time doesn't. They see their conversion, but that thing is still there. Especially, like I said, if it's in your pocket. Right? It's not at the store where you have to go consciously figure out, okay, I'm going to go get my keys, I'm going to get my wallet, go out to my car, I'm going to drive to the local store, and I'm going to pay, what are they, like $18 a pack now? I remember when a carton didn't cost that much.
Carton's $100.
Yeah. So you're going to drop an absurd amount of money to give yourself slow cancer. And you're doing it by choice. But still got that pull to you.
Yeah.
Or Jim Beam. That, well, what's that other one that comes in the fancy purple little bag with a draw some that Crown Royal? Yeah, Royal Crown Soda, isn't it? Yeah, Crown Royal. Yeah, so you go looking for your little fancy purple bag because hey, it's time for another drink. It's got some DT going on here, right? Yeah, most of the time that's probably going to be where you're at. Again, though, can it be removed just that fast? Yes, it can. But most of the time it doesn't. So you got to fight the little devil in the bag, the little demon that keeps going, I'm right over here. I'm in the kitchen. You know that one little cabinet where you keep all the good stuff? No, I'm not talking about the mac and cheese mix. Yeah, it's time to go visit Jimmy. Yeah, Jim Beam. Yeah, Johnny Walker. Yeah.
Orchard sheep made of 2020.
Yeah, right. When you're practically broken, you're still an alcoholic. Yeah. Yeah, but Johnny and Jim don't disappear very quickly sometimes, do they? So that's what he's saying. It's possible, but not often does it go that way. It's a day-on-day journey. The first day, yeah, you're probably going to fall right off the wagon. Probably. Because you hear Johnny rattling around inside the closet, and it's like, yeah, I got to go let him out. He's getting a little rambunctious. You pull out the bottle, and you got your favorite shot glass. I'm only going to have one. Yeah, and 15 shots later, the bottle's 3/4 empty, and you're like, wow, I don't feel any pain at all. Yeah, then you feel pain when you hit the floor. Like, whoa, stop the earth, I want to get off. Whew. And you're asking, do I know that from personal experience? I can neither confirm nor deny. So, yeah, probably the first day, it's most likely not going to fix, but hopefully, maybe day 2, you only have 4 shots. Maybe by day 7, you only have 1. Maybe by day 14, you can look at that and go, and leave it be. Or not. Sometimes you may have God with you, but you still haven't given it over that you want to beat that thing. That's still your choice, isn't it?
But it's also with food too, any food. Same thing.
We have free will,
Yeah.
right? We don't walk in and say, yeah, you know what? God, today'd be a great day to get turned into a droid. Plug all the wires into the top of my head and just make me dance. I have no more choices of my own. You take over and you drive everything. He could, right? I mean, if he made us, how hard would it be to make us dance like Fred Astaire? Really? Right? All you have to do is drop that wiring in and we're going. But he doesn't. We still have that free will choice. So every time we see whatever it is, the bottle, the magazine we shouldn't be looking at, good stuff. Yeah, it's legal in half the states now, isn't it? We know we should put it away, but we don't because it still has a pull, because we still have free will. And that's what he's saying right there, that most of the time it's day to day. And I'm going to stop right here because I think that's pretty much my time, but it's not all my notes, so I guess we'll maybe pick up next week depending on however our timing works out.